Salvē, amici, and welcome. Today we're going to be taking a look at John chapter 4, verses 46 and 47. Sorry about Frigius Maximus Calamitus making a lot of noise in the background. I could wait, and who knows when it would stop. But last time in John chapter 4, the lovely background noise. Here's our text and the rubric, everything we look for to go through. Let's get started. Venit ergo iterum in Cana Galilaeae ubi fecit aquam vinum, et erat quidam regulus cuius filius infirmabatur, Capernaum. Sorry, there's an H there, I should actually pronounce it. Hic cum audisset qui Jesus adveneret a Judaea in Galilaeam, abiit ad eum et rogabat eum ut descenderet et soneret filium eos. Incipiebat enim mori. There we go. Our first word is our verb, which is always nice. We have that it there for the third person singular ending, but this is one of our verbs where present or perfect tense, you can't really tell without looking at the Greek. Well, the Greek has elthon, that is, which is a past tense, which then means that the Latin should correspond, and perfect is more likely what is intended than the present tense. It's active, and it is indicative. Therefore, he came. Iterum is an adverb meaning again. In prepositional phrase, Cana doesn't decline, so then we would have to figure out based on the context what case in would expect and then which function we're experiencing with this preposition. We have a verb of motion, so accusative place to which is the more likely option than ablative of place where. He comes where he is. Doesn't work. But Galilaeae doesn't fit. Ubi doesn't belong either in the prepositional phrase, so close right there. Plus accusative and indeclinable. Galilaeae, AE right there. Genitive singular, dative singular, nominative plural. We already got our subject in the verb. We don't need a dative because the verb doesn't take an indirect object, so genitive singular feminine. Ubi introduces a new clause, so I'm going to go ahead and write this down. And we have our next verb, it again for another third person singular, and then we have the the e instead of the a as a stem change, which tells us that this is going to be the perfect tense, and it is active and indicative as expected. Then we have aquam with an am for accusative singular feminine, direct object of the verb, and this verb takes an accusative to act on another accusative many times, which we find right here with venum. Another accusative, singular, and this is venum, veni, I believe it's neuter. Moving on, and erat, we've seen enough times, we don't need to parse it. Quidam from quidam, quidam, quodam is a indefinite or a obscuring pronoun. The dam makes it that is basically it is decline. I almost said doesn't decline, but that's a verb. It declines like qui, qui, quod in many ways. There's dam will change that. We have our subject with that with the I. Singular has to go with that, so nominative singular masculine, as we can also see with regulus. And regulus, you'll note, comes from a similar stem as rex, regius. We've got the reg in there. The ul just makes it a lesser form of whatever the subject is. The specific rules for how something like ul would attach to a noun or an adjective as it may be, I think this one is an adjective, are dependent on what the end of the stem for the original word is. Wheel locks at the back of the book has this really wonderful section where you've got all of these stem change suffixes. I don't think that's actually what they're called, but a whole bunch of them that explain why certain words mean certain things. And then it allows for the possibility of you being able to compose changing words like rex into something like regulus. Here. So this just means like a petty king or a prince or a chieftain. The Jews didn't really have a petty king. They had Herod and the other tetrarchs I don't remember how many of them are even alive at this point. So those were the kings, so petty king doesn't work. Prince, unless this guy was part of the line of David, that doesn't really make much sense. And then Herod and company and Rome really wouldn't allow for any possible rival claimant to the throne, so prince is not really an option. So chieftain is really the best of the three for Regulus. Quius was from qui quote as well. Ius there is the genitive singular form. It doesn't have a gender, it's common because it fits between all three. Filius. Oh, this is a new clause because relative pronoun right there. So we should go ahead and translate this. And there was declarative statement, certain, unnamed, probably to protect the guy's identity, or John didn't have that information. He'd forgotten over the years, or maybe never learned. But since he's a chieftain, I think that's unlikely, so it's more probable that John either doesn't remember, or he's protecting the guy, or he just didn't think it relevant to record. So that'll happen a lot. Like in Ruth, you have the closer redeemer than Boaz, and Boaz refers to him as Mr. So-and-so. Hodane, I think, in certain versions of the Septuagint. In other versions, it's like K-Phi or something. I don't know. I was looking at it the other day. But anyway, there was, should probably have the verb certain chieftain, whose U.S. nominative singular masculine son infirma batur. Batur, we have our third person singular imperfect tense. And then this, with our TUR, is normally going to be a passive, but infirmo, I don't think infirmo is the normal. I think it's infirmor, which would make this verb a deponent. With the sense that we've got going on here, whose son was being sick and is still sick, I think a deponent verb makes a lot more sense. I don't think you would use this word in Greek, in Latin, to make somebody sick, since normally human beings don't make other human beings sick. That's viruses, but they didn't know about that. So, imperfect, I think deponent. I didn't write it down, naturally. And it is indicative. And keep in mind that in Latin and in Greek, the languages will often use the imperfect to state a condition of the human being that is ongoing. There's a really great example. It's like, I don't know. It's I think something like the German, where it's not ich bin krank. Is it krank? Yeah, ich bin krank. It's not ich bin krank. It's ich. No, krank is the wrong word. Well, whatever the word is for sick, I think it's I have sick rather than I am sick. Whereas in Greek and Latin, it's I was sick, not I am sick. If that makes any sense at all. Because in English, because we've got our paraphrastics, it doesn't fit as well. Capernaum. This one declines, doesn't decline. I don't remember. I don't think it declines in the Greek, which means it probably doesn't decline Latin either, even though Jerome knew Hebrew. So then, what we have going on here, since we have no preposition, this is a place name, we've got the locative, but still indeclinable. So we only acknowledge locative because we know how it's functioning, and it's just telling us where he is. And there was a certain chieftain in Capernaum. Hic, from hic, haec, hoc, so we have our nominative singular masculine. Cum adicet's the wrong form to be a preposition, so then this is a cum clause. Isse tells us that this with the T is going to be a third singular pluperfect, active, subjunctive to go with the cum clause, telling us a temporal event. This man, or this one, cum, when he had heard, and then we have quia introducing a direct statement, so I'm going to go ahead and translate this. Jesus, US right there, don't need to parse it. Advinneret, we've got a T off of the infinitive which then means that we've got another subjunctive, except in this case, instead of pluperfect, I'm just going to pull this over, we have the imperfect subjunctive. And that goes with, we have the possibility that this is an indirect question, that Jesus might come, a Judei, prepositional phrase there plus the ablative. Or it's hearsay, we might say. Might Jesus come is how we would put the indirect question if it were stated directly, that is. Or Jesus might come is just the report. So one of those two. I should know this. You know that I should know this. We both know that I don't know this. I'm going to go with it's probably an indirect question in format. In is going to take with the am right there an accusative. Abed can't be part of it. Place to which. Abeit, it right there, especially with this second, or really the first I in the verb, we know that this is going to be a third singular perfect tense, active, and indicative. This is from eo ire ii itum, or eo ire iwi itum. There's no v in this, so it's the first one. Prepositional phrase, ad eum. Et can't be connecting another object for this preposition because that's a verb. It's taking plus accusative, singular, masculine, that's going to be referring back to Jesus. Rogobat, bat right there. We've seen this form enough that I don't think we need to parse it. If not, I suppose you should let me know, but that'd be kind of silly. Rogobat eum, again, this form right here, accusative, singular, masculine. Ut descenderet t off of the present infinitive. So this is going to be purpose clause rather than a example clause. That's not what it's called, but when we would translate ut as. So that's a third singular imperfect tense because the infinitive, active, subjunctive. At sonoret, we've got another infinitive right there. The t is going to be the same form, so I'm just going to pull that over. And then with that, we have filium right there as our direct object. Eius from is ea id, genitive, singular, common, since it's the same form for all three of the genders. And then incipie bot starts a new clause, so we stop and just translate this as is. I was asking him so that. And then for the final clause, we have bat again. Enim tells us that this is the final clause, so I probably should have pointed to that initially. Incipio takes a infinitive as the thing that it is doing, and that's what we find here with mori. So this is morior, mori, mortuus sum, present infinitive. Active infinitive, that is. Incipie bat, same form as we've seen before from rogabat, so I'm not going to parse that. And it just means was beginning, as it means as it looks, just as descendo means what it looks. Sano, not quite so much. Make sound, heal. Sanitize is the descendant of that word, but it's changed its meaning. Anyway, and there we have it. Let's go ahead and take a look at the text in its own context. Therefore he came again into Cana of Galilee, where he made water wine. And there was certain chieftain whose son was being sick in Capernaum. This one, when he had heard that Jesus might come from Judea into Galilee, he went to him and was asking him so that he come down and make sound his son, for he was beginning to die. And there we have it. Thank you very much for joining me. I hope taking a look at this has been helpful for you and that my voice hasn't annoyed you too much. Have a very happy Holy Week in the West. Farewell.